Hey, paisans, the time has come. On the air since 2009, the independently produced, non-FCC compliant champ of video game talk podcasting. Here comes Tiger Claw Radio. Here's your host, Critical Failure.
Yes, friends, it's time for Tiger Claw Radio. This week, the Pice, chiptune artist, over on Bandcamp has released a new album for free. It's called Bit Island. We're going to check it out. Stick with us, you're listening to TCR. That is the Bit Island album from Pice, P-I-C-E. The name of that track is Adventure. It is the 5th track on the album. Free album, a lot of short songs. But man, really quality stuff. This is a guy who, let's see, I bumped into him on Reddit and a long time back. And I was able to convince this guy to do one of those deals where he puts his discography on Bandcamp up for like $1 or something. But he's released a couple albums since then. This was like a year or two ago. So I think it's like $11 for his discography now. He also showed up on the Chiptunes Equals Win track list 1 year. So my hat's off to Pice because he's got a really nice album. All right, so this past week for me has pretty much been everywhere in geek culture except for video games. I got back into like Dungeons & Dragons and stuff, which I never thought would happen again. I've been playing tabletop games. My favorite video game this past week has been Tabletop Simulator, which I've been really enjoying. Tabletop Simulator is a game I got as a review copy when it first came out. And I had forgot this initially, but I actually did make a review for it. But it's changed a lot since then. I've gone through a couple of computers since its initial release. I remember playing it on my laptop and not really being able to run it very well. Runs good now. So one of the achievements for Tabletop Simulator is to, create some workshop content. This is a rare achievement too. I think like 1% or something has it. So, okay. Now, the achievement guides say that you can do anything and get this achievement, right? I can just make a garbage upload, get the achievement, and pull it down. But I didn't want to do that. I wanted to really get that achievement. So, I started designing a board game. And I designed the Will Smith board game, which is essentially modeled after the 1950s Disney board games, like the Riverboat game and the Adventureland game, that sort of stuff. Very simple. Make it through the board, and the first one to make it to the finish wins. That's how these old board games were back in the day. When my wife and I used to make frequent trips to Disney World before we had the kids, I wish I could remember where exactly it was. It was like somewhere in downtown Disney. We were at the big store in downtown Disney, and in the toy section, they sold us They had a stack of 4 board games that was all, cellophane together, and they were reproductions of these 1950s children's games. We still have them to this day. I think they're great. And that was what I modeled the Will Smith game after. As far as Will Smith is concerned, I just made a Mimi looking board and stuff like that. And I made a little deck of cards. That was one of the things about these old 1950s games is they didn't all operate by dice. Sometimes instead of having dice, there was a stack of cards, and you would pull the card, and the card would say go 1 space, go 2 spaces, whatever. So I made it like a hybrid of the two. You roll a die, then you draw a card. So last night, the gang over at the next round actually played this game with me. I had a 4-person game of the Will Smith game with Sean and Paul the Hollowed Wanderer and Alex Swingle. And I had a ball. It was great, man. And now that is a little tiny piece of tabletop simulator history that'll sit forever in the workshop, at least as long as the workshop stays online. Checked it out this morning though, but a few people actually have subscribed. It's got like 5 or 6 subscribers now. So okay, a lot of fun. But being that my interests have been pretty far from conventional video games, I decided to go back to see what's up with video game news. We did this, I think it was last week or the week before, what's happening in the world of retro games. A bit of a misnomer when you talk about retro news, but there are interesting stories sometimes. And I went digging this morning, and what I found for the most part was, this system was this size. Look at this new clone system, and it's this size. This thing that used to be really big, this clone system is really small. I see a lot of those stories, and those don't interest me too much. Because there's a lot of clone systems. If you want a system and you can't afford it, you can get a clone system. If you want an old system and you want a premium version, you can get a really nice clone system. Both of those options exist for more or less every system out there now. So when I see those stories, it's like, whatever. One thing that did catch my eye was an official Sega product. The Sega Venus handheld revealed for the very first time. Okay, so I know that a few of the people who listen to this are big-time Sega folks who know more about the company than I do, but I'm going to try and summarize anyway. Sega, if you're not a Sega person, uses, like most other companies, they would use code names for their systems while they were in development. All of the code names they would use were based on the solar system. The Sega Saturn retained its code name, and then there was the Sega Neptune, which was, I don't know, I want to say the Dreamcast, but I might be wrong about that. That might be the Genesis or something, I don't know. They used the planets, okay? So the Sega Venus was the system that eventually became the Sega Nomad. You know, the portable Sega Genesis. So I'm looking at Retro Dodo right now, and this came out this past December, just a month and a half ago or so, and the prototype looked completely different. It looked like, almost like, what's that brown color that they use on cars when you go to buy a car, and the car dealership will call it champagne, but it's not champagne, it's actually like dirt. Like bronze dirt. That's what color this thing is. It looks kind of neat, actually, to be perfectly honest. It's got round buttons, which was one of the things I always thought was weird about the Sega Nomad. It had these bizarre-looking oval buttons. Yeah, it looks really sweet. I don't think they're actually gonna release this. I don't know. Will this new Sega handheld console be released? Limited edition Game Gear Micro Pack. I don't know. That's a thing about Sega that we didn't know previously. Apart from that, the newscape, at least as it relates to retro games, appears to be, look at this clone, look at that clone. So it is what it is. One sort of fun article that caught my eye. Not necessarily about retro news, but the Nintendo Switch. Okay, the Hori company made an interesting product for the Nintendo Switch. I like the Hori controllers and stuff. My Hori Fight Pad is one of my favorite controllers ever. So they've released, what are they calling it? The Nintendo Switch Accessibility Controller. And it almost looks like a console in and of itself with like 12 different jacks on one side. And then each jack, basically, you can externally plug in a great big giant button for each button. So, and then the external buttons, you can place them on a big surface in any way that works out for you. So if you have a double amputee who only has their feet, then one of these things can be rigged up and, they can make their way through Dragon Quest or something, which I think is awesome. I think it's really awesome. Accessibility is a big deal because people who need devices like this, like, where do you look? You got to get creative. You got to go to like custom developers or something. You got to get something custom built. So having something like this put out, and not just for people who are dealing with a handicap, but the fact that you can plug in external buttons, thinking about it now, that must open a whole new like layer of possibility for modding, right? Because now you can make anything a button for the Nintendo Switch, as long as it interfaces with this 3.5 millimeter jack that they have. You could build a great big giant arcade cabinet. I don't know. It looks nice. I can also kind of see this being the sort of thing where it's like, all right, once I click away from this article, I'm never going to hear anything about it again, because nobody I know is going to need this thing, but it's not for anybody I know. On the other hand, there's quite a bit of modding capability here. We're looking at a little box with tons and tons of 3.5 millimeter jacks for each input, up, down, left, right, X, B, A, R, whatever. Who's to say what the what constitutes a power source? Is it just a button that can send a pulse, like a gate? Like, could I hook my Eurorack up to this thing and send continuous pulses? That would be pretty dope. To play like a button masher game, but then hook up like my drum sequencer to it, so that I just turn the knob on my synthesizer and it just presses the button over and over again, faster and faster. That would be fun. I somehow don't think that's how it works, but that would be fun. And that part I still enjoy. Not necessarily the video games themselves, but the hacking, the hardware. That part never gets old for me. So kudos to Hori, because, again, who knows what this product is actually going to do or how much money it's going to make, but what a cool invention. Not necessarily product, not necessarily, thing to go out and buy. This is a cool invention. Good for them. All right, let's do one more from Pice. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. That's Stargazing from Pice. Go grab the album, it's free. Alright, boys and girls, I'd like to take a minute to thank the sponsors. This is a Patreon-sponsored program. I like to tip my hat. Tip my hat and read their names off in a hall of distinguished gentlemen. They are Hemrock, EmeraldRangers.com, Tecmoballs, Darabka, Konstantin Kelman, and Eric Controller. Thank you guys so much, and I hope you're enjoying the party. Speaking of EmeraldRangers.com, yesterday I started working on an article for Keystone Capers for the Atari 2600. Now, I haven't played Keystone Capers in quite some time. Cendoo was like, let's just do an Atari article, and I was like, yeah, that sounds great. Got out the game, started playing it. So I played, to put it in perspective, Keystone Capers was one of the games I believe that I bought when I first restored my Atari 2600. And by restored, I mean like I got the piece that makes it so you could plug it into the coax cable, and then I ordered a package of like 5 games or something. It was like a turning point moment for me in the Atari, because that was also like, that was the day that I got Berserk, which ended up being my favorite Atari game. And one of them was Keystone Capers, which I got on a recommendation. So at the time I didn't play it much, but revisiting it now, yeah, it's really good. I wouldn't call it I wouldn't call it a beginner Atari game, because I had to play it with the context of having been an Atari guy for a few years. But man, that was really good. Oop, hang on one second. What do we got here? So, okay. What can I give you to explain a real opinion? Okay, a little bit faster paced than the other side-scrolling games. First of all, side-scrolling in and of itself on the Atari, not very common. This is a game that uses a workaround where the playing field stretches like 4 screens, and when you go to the end of the screen, it just reverts to the next screen. It famously done in Pitfall and a few other games. That's what this game does. I used the term side-scrolling. It didn't really scroll. It just had several screens. But even that, I mean, a lot of these types of games, you know, like Jumpman, you know, or Donkey Kong or that sort of thing, very fast-paced when compared to other platforming on the Atari. The only other side-scrolling game I can really think of, or at least the only other one I can think of off the top of my head, was the vine-swinging stages from Jungle Hunt are similar in pace, except those are, when you compare the two games, those are much more lacking in terms of player interactivity. You run, and you jump, and you try and catch up with the robber, and if you catch the robber, then you move to the next stage. Pretty simple. Pretty simple, but there are actually characters as opposed to just amorphous blobs. Not that I have anything against a good amorphous blob game, but you're clearly playing like a Keystone Cop type character with a gigantic cop hat, and you're clearly chasing a robber in the black and white striped robber pajamas that they're usually depicted with in these old types of things. Yeah. Fun little game. Yeah, so keep your eyes peeled on EmeraldRangers.com for that. I had meant that to be like a one-day article, but of course, once I pulled back the curtain and started digging into it, it's taking a little bit longer, but so I imagine that'd be out in the next like few days or so. Here's one for you, and I remember Alex Swingle talking about this, but apparently back in October, Sega released, for only one day, they released a prototype of a Golden Axe game that had since been canceled, called Golden Axed. It's just a prototype, and they released it for one day on Steam. I remember Swingle talking about this, and I'm looking at this article, and apparently the people who worked on the prototype had no idea that this was going to happen, and they're like, wait, we worked on this for 2 weeks, that's why everything looks terrible. And it kind of doesn't look great. It kind of looks like almost like Unity type assets with a real like bland lighting. But apart from that, you know, serviceable. And at first I was like, awesome, they released a Golden Axe game for free at one point. And then I was like, wait, it looks terrible. Then I was like, oh, it's just a prototype. And then I was like, wait, they did it without them knowing. And I was like, oh, yeah, but they gave it away for free. So I don't know. Neat little thing, if you ask me. Yes, it's a prototype, but I'm reading through this, and they released it exactly as it was. This is just a sloppy prototype. They called it Golden Axed, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, Bob's your uncle. So, I don't know, seems pretty neat. Gone now. There's not even an accessible Steam store page. And at the time, I just had other things to do. I could not go and get it because this was in October. We were at the beginning of the holiday season. I just had too much going on. But neat little thing that happened a few months ago. All right, well, we're in a weird place this week because I've only got one comment via YouTube from last week. Mecha Menace writes, doesn't so-called Hot Dog Fingers own the Acclaim name right now? I thought he published a game or two under that label. I remember there was a time when he was also promoting porting the game to the ill-fated Coleco Chameleon. Who is Hot Dog Fingers? Because I don't know. Mecha Menace, good to hear from you, brother. This past week, I also was able to get up a video of Sean hanging out talking about Legendary Axe 2 at MagFest. Those were good times. Glad I was able to hang out with you and Sean. Hope you're doing well. That's Hemrock. Good to hear from you, brother. Let's see. We got a really long one on one of my Screamer 2 videos. Somebody talking about strategies for playing Screamer 2, which I always thought was an obscurity when it came to racing games. So that's kind of surprising. I'm not going to bother reading this whole thing, but he's talking about essentially you have to memorize the tracks, which is unfortunate. But yeah. What else we got? We got one from Janitor Joe, which kills me because Janitor Joe for MS-DOS, and this is a video that I have up from several years ago. Again, this is one of the games that my dad had. We had it on floppy disk, and we played it on his 386 machine. Now, in those days, I didn't know how to slow down the CPU cycles, and this is one of those games that did not account for, fast CPU cycles. So we would load it up in DOS, and it would run really too fast for us to play. So it wasn't really until years and years later, when DOSBox became a thing, that I was able to actually slow this down and play it. But Caleb W. says, I played it when I was 7, found a secret room, and figured out a glitch that allowed me to beat the game on difficulty 5, and saw the best ending ever. I think I was the only kid to figure out the cheat and beat it on max difficulty. Yeah, I don't know the cheat. And I definitely never beat it on max difficulty. I beat the first room like a handful of times, and that was it. I found it to be a very difficult game indeed. Would be interested to know what that cheat is, though. What else we got? Yeah, Mecha Menace says, by the way, YouTube is now applying some sort of newest first top comments in the comments tab inside the YouTube studio. I don't believe you missed my comment for the last TCR. YouTube hid it from you. You have to hit this, oh, look at that. You have to hit the sorting box in the YouTube comments tab for the video. Let's check this out. We're going to put that to the test. I know last week's episode didn't get a ton of comments. Yeah, look at that. There's a couple. Newest first. Light Studios, right? It doesn't really matter if the Netflix app goes away on the 3DS. The experience was just an inferior smartphone. As for Wii U, maybe the web browsers will work. The Vita's YouTube app is abandoned, but you can still watch YouTube using the mobile site. Yeah, Mecha Menace, good to hear from you. Light Studios, thanks for checking in. Very, very weird, the state of the YouTube comments section. But rest assured, whatever I can do to get to the comments, if you're taking the time to leave them, I'll find them and make sure they get read. Somebody left a comment on my Quake Reaper bot mod saying, does it have power-ups like invisibility and teleport? And the answer is no. It's just straight up bots. Still worthwhile though if you like the original Quake. Actually, I'm gonna text that. Straight up bots. And then I got a couple of questions from old DOS people coming across my word processor videos. You should try WordStar 7. It keeps the original functionality of the old versions, that writers and typists like, but adds more modern functionality similar to WordPerfect. Yeah, good to know. If I find a decent version I can get a hold of, I'd be happy to try it. You know, I got to be honest, I do miss doing those MS-DOS videos. I had a lot of fun with those. I might have to return to the old DOS box and do some recording. We'll have to see. So, again, weird spot, because that's the fail bag, and we're only 27 minutes in, which I think is cool, because now we can really just chill out and have fun. Let's go back to the Pice album one more time. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. Stick with us. Back again on TCR. During the break, I ran into Cendoo on Discord, and we chilled out. And here it is. All right, we're on. Okay, so the article for Emerald Rangers. So I wrote it on Keystone Capers. I always want to say Keystone Cops, but that's not what it's called. And I would say at this point, it's written about as normally as I do like any article. It glosses it over pretty hard. It's based on my experiences playing it just yesterday and way back when I originally got the game. Because this is one of those games where like I got it and then I played it when I first got it and then it went in the stacks and I never really played it again. But what happened was when I started playing it yesterday and I kind of pulled the curtain back on it, I was like, there's actually kind of an interesting story here. So I did write it, but the reason it's not out yet is because I wanted to make sure it did the game justice. Like, it's a real article. Like a really real one.
As opposed to,
here's my article on combat. I played it. It's I'm going to recite what Wikipedia has. I don't know. I just felt like there was more to say. It's not finished. Is that okay?
That's fine.
Cool, man.
I had a feeling you'd get passionate about Atari articles.
I like Atari. And, you know, this is one of the things that I struggle with is like I gotta find the stuff that I like to make content about as opposed to, you know, what fits the format or any of that sort of stuff.
Well, nobody's written about Atari yet, so it'd be a nice addition.
Heck yeah, man. So how's the site doing?
Statistically, not too bad. Pushing a bit.
Statistically, you keeping in touch with your bros?
I meant the view stats.
Mm-hmm. No, I understand.
pushing about 5 to 6,000 views a month.
Good for you, man.
It's something.
Yeah.
Behind the scenes, a lot of people just seem to lose motivation at the end of last year. Just too much drama in real life. But
Well, it's been a
some
tough
people
year.
are still here. Yeah. Had more than a few hiatuses.
And
But other than that, Twitch page is taken off. It's affiliated.
heck yeah. I haven't been in, but only because I'm not a Twitch guy.
Yet.
Yet, that's true. I'm going to be honest, Twitch scares me a little bit. Just a little bit.
We'll get you to multitask. You'll play a game while recording your show.
I did get a DJ controller, which is a Twitch thing.
Ooh la la.
Yeah.
It'll help you with that backlog you got.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I don't know, we'll just put a day for you. CF's First Impressions live stream. There you go.
There you go. That sounds like
made
a
that
good
up.
time.
He'll do it once and then forget about it.
And that's fine. It is what it is. I'm a shard for a reason, because I come and go when I can.
Yeah. Although, been talking with potential new members. Stuff to do besides writing. Like, hopefully we plan to buy some podcast hosting soon and get that on there.
Oh, wow. That's fancy.
Wow, I say that more than it means. You ever heard of Buzzsprout?
I have not.
It's... Some websites claim it to be one of the best to host podcasts, and their prices aren't too bad. They don't go by a certain number of... how do I say it? It's unlimited storage, it just limits how much you can upload a month.
Okay, that's not so bad.
Yeah,
How's the distribution?
that's hard to say.
Do you know what I mean by that?
Like, how does it spread its words and whatnot?
That's it exactly. That's one of the reasons why I gave up on Podomatic, because there was... Distribution was essentially, it put it in its own directory, and it had like a trickle down which got it onto iTunes, but I had no control over the iTunes port. Whereas Anchor is much more restrictive in terms of how much I can upload, but the distribution is a lot better.
Yeah, I'm gonna send you to this page that lists a bunch of icons that I don't recognize that it shares your podcast with.
Okay.
Apple Podcasts, of course, Apple has their own podcasts. There's a Google Podcasts now. Where the heck have we been?
Well, when TCR started, we had Podomatic, and we had Podbean, and we had iTunes, and that was it. And everybody was on iTunes. If you weren't on iTunes, you weren't really a podcast, which is why I am where I am.
Actually, if memory serves, you started out on Mega Upload.
Oh, that's true. You're right.
And you got 2 emails.
That was a Nardwar moment. Are you familiar with Nardwar?
No.
Oh, he's an interviewer who it does, shall we say, guerrilla journalism, where he'll just like jump out and like, all right, we're on with Coolio, like while he's walking to his car.
Oh dear.
Yeah, that's in terms of like talking to people, that's got to be my hero. Is Nardwar, the human serviette. He's worth looking up.
Right. Well, according to this thing, it'll put you on Spotify. A lot of people use that nowadays.
Spotify's good.
Yes, Alexa's on there.
What are you thinking about content-wise? Still Japanese television?
I keep that to written stuff because video that gets flagged real fast, and there's not much to say in audio form.
Mm-hmm. What about another? How can I put this?
Well, Kaiser was thinking of starting another podcast again.
Good for him. Good for him. You know, we give him a hard time because he changes his format every couple of years, but that has kept him in the podcast game, being able to do that.
Catcast lasted how many, like 60-something episodes?
That's a good bit.
It was Captain Kaiser and Kaiser Cast. Has he done Kaiser Cast yet?
If memory serves me, the only reason why he ended Catcast was because that was back when he first made the jump to live streaming, didn't he?
He was doing both, actually, for a while. The live stream is called Sunday Night Kaiser.
Right. Kaiser Sunday, not an ice cream.
Yeah.
So, if you ever went back to video, what do you think about using an alternate platform, apart from YouTube?
Do any exist anymore?
I know. I know.
No, actually, we are going to do YouTube. But creating YouTube pages for Emerald Rangers.
Mm-hmm.
I think anything Power Ranger related I'll keep on my personal channel, but video game stuff we'll probably do there.
There you go.
I already got people recording Let's Plays for the Let's Play channel. Fun fact, they start you at 15 minutes now until you reach a certain threshold.
What? Really?
Yeah, for YouTube.
What's the threshold?
It was like 1,000 subs and X number of average views. Forget.
Oh man, that might be the death of TCR right there. Because I have the 1,000 subs, but the watch time is no bueno, which has always been fine for me.
Dude. Oh, dude, don't you know your YouTube history? They never take away privileges like that.
That's not entirely true. That's not entirely true. Do you remember when they first rolled it out, where you had to hit a certain threshold to get partnership, and they killed partnership for a lot of people all at once?
Do you remember when there was a 10-minute limit unless you made your account before a certain date? Like Jerry Terrifying had no upload limit.
I do remember that. No, wait, I don't remember that. When I first got on, there was already a 10-minute limit. Were you able to do infinite before that?
Yes, they originally reduced it to 10 minutes because people kept uploading episodes of stuff, someone told me, but that didn't really work because people just split it into 3 videos.
Yeah. The early YouTube days were fascinating, man.
I used to watch anime subs at 240p on not full screen because it didn't look good enough to go full screen. Split into 3 videos.
I used a program called Get Right. I think that was what it was called, because I was on dial-up and I couldn't support watching a YouTube video. So what I would do instead was download the video slowly, like an hour per minute at a time, so that I could see the new Angry Nintendo Nerd video. Not Angry Video Game Nerd, Angry Nintendo Nerd.
I used to watch him new on game trailers, but my old computer couldn't really play a game trailers video without lagging, although I found a weird as heck workaround. No idea why this worked. I'd like right click the video, leave that menu open, and it made the video play smoother yet out of sync.
I gotcha.
I don't know why that happens, but it worked.
That's the old days. So here's a question. Think back to when you were doing that. Okay. When you turned game trailers off, what were you actually playing? Do you remember?
On YouTube?
Not necessarily on YouTube, but like what were the games you were interested in at the time? Because I can tell you what I was interested in. We had a used bookstore across the street where I had just recently picked up Diablo, complete in box, for $5 for CD-ROM, along with SimCity 2000 for $5. And I was playing a lot of Diablo, but there was no OBS at the time. Everyone was... I don't know if Fraps had come along or not, but I didn't have a way to like record decent footage of it, or maybe my computer just couldn't handle it. So like that was a big part of my gaming life at the time, but it never saw the light of day on my YouTube channel.
I wasn't a huge PC. I don't have a history as a PC gamer much. Back then I'd play like some 2D MMORPGs.
Yeah.
I was always the console guy.
So did you play like Ragnarok and stuff?
Yeah. Also, at the time, there was one computer that me and 3 brothers had to share, so it's not like I could just sit down for a long period of time on it.
Yeah.
You remember those days?
I do indeed.
Now the games I played, no one remembers. There was Endless Online. That still sort of exists. Takes about 30 megabytes to install. I shouldn't remember the name of them. I think Maple Story was one of them.
Is that where Maple Story came from? Because I know that there was a couple of games that turned up on Steam that were like free to play, that were old MMOs that seemed to have like an ancient fan base.
Okay, it wasn't Maple Story, but that might actually be true about Maple Story. Oh yeah, my brothers were super into, what was it, RuneScape? Yeah.
I remember RuneScape.
I played it once when the game was still 2D and never touched it again.
Okay, so help me out here. When you say 2D, was it actually 2D, or are you talking about like primitive polygonal 3D rendering? Because I tried it once too, but it was primitive 3D, I think.
I guess that was probably more accurate.
More accurate?
Yeah, I think it might have been that. My memory's a little fuzzy.
Yeah, I remember trying it and not understanding why it was so popular. But this was probably in like 2007 or something.
Some people play lots of it because they already invested so much money into it.
And what are you going to
do? You ever play MMORPGs in your time?
Not much, but I do have a little experience. You talked about the days when you had to share a computer, right? During those days, my older brother got a Gateway computer. Do you remember Gateway? With a cow and everything.
Before my time.
He bought one of the games that he bought was EverQuest, which we've talked about here. Now it's a free-to-play game, but in those days it was still a big box PC game, and it was super thick. Like 2 regular big box games stacked on top of each other. That was an MMO that I put a good amount of time into. We had to switch back and forth, so I didn't get to do those really long sessions that MMOs are typical of, and the difficulty was really punishing, because when you died, you dropped everything right there, and you had to go back and find your corpse with no gear, or you lost all your stuff. But yeah, those were good times. What about you? Apart from RuneScape.
I didn't play RuneScape.
Well, you played it once. That counts.
The first 3D one I played was called Repels, I think. That had some very, very slow leveling up.
Mm-hmm.
Also, there was one I got super into for a while. It was called Two Moons, later renamed Takara or something. It was actually an MMO made by Acclaim. Ever heard of them?
Acclaim, yes. How? Yeah. I never heard of any of these games, though. What were you playing it on?
It was a Windows XP machine.
Windows XP?
Yeah, before that we had a 98 that didn't really play games, but sort of watched videos. I guess I played CartoonNetwork.com games.
I recently came across an old file on my computer with like my old Click and Play projects in it. Click and Play and like the Games Factory and stuff. So I have several old Windows games that apparently I made and apparently would still work, but when I try and run them in Windows 10, it's like they're not going to work on this operating system. So I don't know what I'm going to have to do. Maybe I could try like using compatibility, or maybe I could try like another virtual machine, but that seems like a lot of fuss for what equates to essentially Pong.
You know, you could just have a retro PC.
I could, but there's a lot of space issues, and I kind of gave up a lot of that space in the way of getting into synthesizers. I know.
Time to build a shed office in the backyard.
I got to do it now though. Like if I'm gonna do that, because I feel like the whole concept of getting a retro PC or like an old machine that's authentic, I think that's gonna get harder and harder to do, right?
Yeah. Well, you could just use an old tiny laptop.
And just like flash Windows 95 on it or something.
Why not? You were gonna do that with Linux.
I did that actually with Linux. I bought a $100 laptop that ran Windows 10 using mobile hardware technology, and I ran it for a while until the Windows updates got larger than the hard drive, so it wouldn't run. I flashed over it with Linux Mint, and then for whatever reason, every time you fired it up, after about 10 seconds or so, it would just freeze.
That's wine bottle, right?
Yeah, it's in the garbage now.
Poor thing.
Yeah.
You know, the Mac also does wine, or wine bottle. One of them.
What
I found.
You mean like Linux to Mac compatibility?
No, I mean to play games on a Mac.
I'm not familiar.
Yeah, sorry. I remembered you to get games to run on Linux. You used this program called Wine, was it, or Wine Bottle?
Wine.
Yeah, it's Wine Bottle on Mac.
Okay, but
I bring that up because there's a real funny story about a Steam game, Metal Gear Rising, the Mac version, the official one on Steam actually uses Wine Bottle. Every time, if you have a Mac and fire it up, it'll launch Wine Bottle and just run the game. Runs it perfectly.
That's pretty silly. But to be fair, if you get games off of GOG, a lot of them have installs of DOSBox, right? It just runs DOSBox natively. So as long as they have the licensing to do so and the game experience is legit, I guess it's not that weird. It's just a little strange.
Hey, they use their resources.
Yeah, gotta do what you gotta do, man.
Anything fancy else on the GOG these days?
Not much on GOG. There, probably like 6 months ago now, when the Metal Gear games dropped, that was a big bombshell for me. Metal Gear Solid 2, and then like the original Metal Gear, which I think might even constitute like would that be the first American release of the authentic original Metal Gear?
I think that was released on Metal Gear Solid 3 as bundled in to the game.
Really? Did you have to
Was
unlock it somehow?
It was either that or it was the Subsistence re-release of the game.
Probably the re-release. I have like the original PS2 game. I don't remember it being on there, but to be fair, there's probably a lot of stuff on there I haven't come across yet.
Oh, the Subsistence one, they added free-ranged camera controls, which was a big deal.
What did is that a PC thing?
No, it was also on PS2. The Subsistence.
Yeah,
Like,
man, this is after I dropped from the Metal Gear franchise.
Metal Gear.
I never played Metal Gear 4.
Solid 4.
Solid 4, yeah.
Well, that one goes back. It takes place after 2. 3 was kind of the start of a separate series with Old Big Boss, followed by two PSP games, and then a PS4 and Xbox One game.
I just want to choke people. I really just want to choke people and hide in a box, and that's it. All the games have that, right?
Oh yeah,
And
they never get.
Also talking to people on the radio.
Yes. In Metal Gear Solid 5, they actually have a box special dropped in because they knew he still likes it.
That's pretty funny. I think
Yeah,
that's when that series shines, is when it's self-aware.
It is. Metal Gear Solid 5, the radio calls, they no longer lock you in. You can listen to them while playing.
Oh, wow. That's a big deal.
The box, they actually let you slide in the box now, or put a poster on it to stretch it out.
Strange.
Eh. Oh, they became super self-aware. Like 5 takes place in the mid-'80s, but they've got these eye devices that display a giant hologram of a map.
Strange. I guess it was the 1980s vision of Star Trek.
I guess.
Right.
And the cigar was replaced with a phantom cigar. Smoking it causes time to pass super fast.
Weird.
But you can customize your helicopter with paint and music. You can get it to play Kids in America.
Bizarre.
It's oh boy. What were we talking about? We went off topic, I think.
I can't remember. I don't think there was a topic. I think "How are you?" was where we left
Oh yeah, it was your Atari article.
Atari, right? Jeez Louise. Yeah,
This isn't the first time I've got you to revisit Atari. When I first got my 78, when I first got my 7800 and described the games I was playing, he just went on air saying, "I want to play that too."
I never got to either. Playing a 7800. Also, recently you shared some photos of your. This was on Discord. You shared some photos of your setup, not setup photos in particular, but there was something specific, like the TV or something. We were talking about CRTs at the time, and you could see just a little bit of the Atari collection just peeking out in one of the shots, and I was like, oh, there it is.
Don't you remember somebody gave me the Telegames 2600 and a bunch of games with it.
I do remember that because I remember specifically the Kool-Aid Man was in that stack, right?
Yeah.
Kool-Aid game?
Yes, which was a giveaway if you had it sent in enough Kool-Aid stickers, whatever. What are they called?
The points. Kool-Aid used to have points on the back.
Yeah.
Did you ever mail in any of the points for any of those types of things?
No.
No. I mailed in the points on the back of my Cheetos for like a Yak Back. Do you remember Yak Back?
We've had this conversation once.
Yes, we have.
Talking toy, right?
Yep, talking toy. We went down this same train of thought. You're right. It looks familiar.
And then we started talking about AliExpress, and it went all off the place from there.
When's the last time you've been to AliExpress?
I pop in once in a while just to look at stuff they sell. Right now I'm looking at the Sega Saturn cartridge they have, which is an all-in-one. They say an action replay, a memory cartridge, and a region unlocker.
Yeah, I got really lucky. And Desmond was just like, here you go, bro. You can have all that. Yes, thank you, man. I bought Battlemania 2 off of AliExpress, and this I know we've talked about, and it just never showed up. And that soured me on the whole site. Like, I tried to make it, I tried to tell myself, okay, look, it was a $3.50 game. $3.50 for a game that's like hundreds of dollars for an actual game. You got to let it go. It just happens. It's part of doing business with AliExpress. But something about it, man, is like the idea that I can't be 100% sure when I buy a game if it's actually going to show up or not. That really did sour me.
Well, they just gave me a $20 discount coupon.
Oh, yeah?
I just popped on right now.
Yeah, same here.
I don't know how that's valid. I did actually, before I knew about the site well, I ordered a Sephiroth cosplay off of it, and it actually did show up in time for the convention. Yes, it did.
Oh, that's awesome.
It was made of polyester and leather.
That's
I
right.
I didn't get the full leather one because that's expensive.
Yeah, don't go cheap, man. It's cosplay.
Yeah, and also you're already one of those people that buys theirs.
Yep. I'm looking at it now, and it all came back to me all at once. The last time I was at AliExpress, I was still actively going to the gyms. This was pre-COVID, and my kids would go to the at the gym. They had like I don't know, like a kids center, and a couple of the people who worked there were people we knew. Like one of the ladies who also works at our church with the children's program, she was like also working at this place, so we trusted them. It was really cool. So I would run a couple miles, and then I would sit in a chair outside the kids center and wait for my wife to finish working out, and then when we teamed up, we would go get the kids. So consequently, I would usually have like 30 minutes in that chair, and I really wanted one of those Game Boy clones that they sell on AliExpress.
Oh.
Do you know the ones I'm talking about? The really bad ones? GB Boy Color. It's like $30.
Console, Game Boy Advance player, video game screen, 8-bit retro mini portable. That's a long name. That's about $13 actually.
Yeah,
it's on sale.
There's a lot of them. It wasn't $13 then. The cheapest you could find one at that point was like $20.
Oh, that's on sale from 26.
Okay, that makes sense. But that was the last time I was at AliExpress. I never made the jump. I never actually got one because that was at the same time I was really getting into synths for the first time, and I got like a pocket synthesizer.
Don't you have any of the old handhelds?
Yeah, I have a couple of Game Boy Colors. I've got a Game Boy Brick, like the first model Game Boy. I've got a Wonder Swan. I don't have a Game Gear, and I don't have a Lynx or a Neo Geo Pocket Color, but yeah.
I have two Game Gears. One of them works. The other one looks nicer.
I got a couple of Game Gear games.
I got the converter for the Mega SG that plays Game Gear games on the HDMI.
Remind me what the Mega SG is again?
You heard of Analog? They make clone systems. They're expensive, but they don't emulate. They run the games amazingly, and they're completely region free.
Yes. Okay, I'm familiar now.
Yeah, I got that, and they just, well, not just. It's been a long time, but I bought this pack of 3 converters for it. It already came with Mega Drive Master System converters, but it came with the Master System card, the SG-1000, and Game Gear converters. Play on the system on the TV.
I wish I had more space for my video games, man.
Oh, their systems are tiny, and the actual system still works with the Sega CD. It's got a connector for it.
Yeah.
But hey, with that thing, I can actually twitch Game Gear games off real hardware. That's crazy.
Game Gear is a system that has some games that would be worth blowing up to a large size, I would say. You know, like, I guess the Game Boy does too, but I think the list is shorter for the Game Boy. If I'm playing another Game Boy, it better be on a phone or some sort of small display.
I don't know. My first memories of Game Boy were Pokemon Red on the Pokemon Stadium on the TV.
Yeah, okay, that counts. But again, the list is small. You think you'd play Mario Land that way?
Oh, I wouldn't play Mario Land in anyway.
That's unfortunate. Mario Land's a good game. Do you not like Mario Land?
I didn't grow up with Nintendo. I don't have the Mario nostalgia. They all just kind of feel the same to me. That's not true. I did have Super Mario Bros., the original, as a kid. The next one we owned was Mario Sunshine because it came with the GameCube.
Yeah, I forgot you were a Sega guy growing up. I didn't make the jump till I became an adult.
Yeah. Yeah. These Bluetooth controllers analog makes still work with real systems. You ever want a Bluetooth Super Nintendo controller? Works
No.
a hell of a lot. Works a heck of a lot better than the official wireless controllers. Like
I
it actually.
can't stand wireless, to be honest with you. I want to have all of the cables, make a big spaghetti monster in my room. That's what I like.
Mr. Old Fashioned.
Yep, I can't. I don't. Because every time I use a wireless controller, even if it's a top of the line controller, I cannot get it out of my head that there may be input lag that I'm just not seeing. And it's affecting my performance as a gamer.
The official wireless Sega Genesis controller does the thing TV remotes do, so you have to keep it pointed at the system to work. This Bluetooth one they make will work from any angle without any lag at all.
Yikes.
It's amazing when people do better than the officials.
Well, I mean, how long ago was the official Genesis one?
I don't know, 30 years.
You gotta be fair, man. They used what they had at the time.
Analog's newest system is actually a TurboGrafx Duo cartridge CD. And it's actually cheaper than getting a real one because they're so rare.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
And it probably runs better too. Never owned a TurboGrafx 16.
Me either.
Seems like something you'd enjoy, yeah.
Yeah, I've never owned one, but I've always had sort of like a passing interest. I never learned a ton about the TurboGrafx library, but every time I come across it, I always see something I like.
They say the worst game on it's that Darkwing Duck game, which doesn't look too terrible. I mean,
You gotta go by the best games, though, not the worst games, right?
I heard there was only like 80-something released in America.
That's fine, but here's my thing with TurboGrafx 16, okay?
It's actually 8-bit.
No, it's nothing to do with any of that stuff. Because believe me, I'm the least hardware limitations discriminatory person you're gonna find, right? Because I like Atari, of course, but the really desirable TurboGrafx games are just too expensive, right?
Yeah.
Because they got great shmups, but you're either gonna get those on a reproduction, or you're gonna pay hundreds of dollars per game.
It's actually probably cheaper to import the PC Engine games.
Yeah.
Just like the poor Saturn.
So again, I wouldn't call that like an impossible system. I just never, couldn't justify the plunge, especially the way I am with console games. How I actually sit down with my consoles like only once in a while.
Yeah. That's why we gotta get you something portable.
Yeah.
I put a lot of hours on my Vita for like Final Fantasy X and Persona 4 Golden.
Yeah.
They're really long games, but I was able to play them in short bursts because at any point I could just hit the power button and go into standby. Battery on that thing's pretty good.
I always wanted to play Peace Walker for some reason, and I never did.
It's actually a pretty good game. It was on PSP, but it works on Vita too.
Yeah.
Digitally.
I had the Japanese import version of Peace Walker for like a couple days.
You played Metal Gear Solid 3, right?
Yes.
The direct sequel to that is Portable Ops, and the sequel to that is Peace Walker.
Okay.
So it's the big boss story again.
But wasn't one of those games like a card game or something?
That was Metal Gear Acid. It was a spin-off.
Okay. I see.
That
was like a PSP launch title or something, right? I remember it being like tied in with the early PSP days.
Yeah, that took place in an alternate timeline. And the sequel came with some cardboard 3D glasses.
That means they were embarrassed and they retconned it. Right?
It's a spin-off, mate. It was never meant to be part of the official timeline.
Okay.
I played through it, and I never actually tried to be stealthy. I just got into card battles with people. I used a missile launcher on a security camera because that was the card I had available.
That's pretty funny.
You can even get the vamp card to suck a guard's blood and get some health back.
I am actually out of time. I've got to go back and take care of some things.
Oh boy.
You hanging in there, bro?
Yeah.
Thanks for dropping in and saving the day.
That was our random nonsense.
It was. It's good to do that from time to time. When all this COVID stuff clears up, you're gonna come to Tigerfest, right?
Yeah. But before that, you're gonna do Fastcast with me, right?
Yep.
We'll do a topic just simply reminiscing about our history on YouTube and other websites.
Sounds good, man. All right, I'm out of here for now.
Bye.
Yeah. That's it for TCR this week. See you next week and stay healthy.